So recently we saw the release of the long-awaited Super Mario Bros. Movie and, well, I was pretty hopeful coming into it. When it was first announced way back when, I wasn't too thrilled with the idea. Previous attempts to bring Mario to the big screen had ended in abject failure, and so I thought that this would too. I mean, he's a hard character to adapt, and it really does pose a massive risk that you'll just produce utter garbage. On top of that, I wasn't exactly enamored with some of the casting decisions, and so I quietly resigned myself to Super Mario being a subpar film. Until they started releasing the trailers, and while the trailers, they looked pretty good all things considered. I wasn't really hyped for the voice acting, but everything else, it was looking pretty awesome. And then the film came out, and critics seemingly did not like it. It has a 56% as of writing this. A rotten rating, which, maybe this is a bit of a spicy take, but imagine being a professional film critic as your career and being so wrong. I'm convinced sometimes that some people just hate fun. Is it a masterpiece film? No. It does have problems, but at the same time, it is by no means bad. And I think the audience overall does agree so far. It has a 96% approval rating from an audience perspective as of writing this. And yeah, I know that score's likely been dragged up by the rabid fanboys, but I think the critics' score's also been dragged down by the fact that many critics don't view these sort of films the way they should be viewed. They are supposed to be fun, exciting action thrill rides. They're not high cinema. And so you do need to judge things by a different rubric. Otherwise, it just isn't fair. And so yeah, I think it's quite clear by now that I enjoyed the film, and I'm very happy that it seems to have enjoyed some tremendous success. For reference, as of writing this, the film had just finished its opening weekend and had broken records for the highest grossing opening for any animated film ever, as well as for any video game movie ever, and is the third highest Easter weekend opening of all time behind Batman vs Superman and Furious 7, which, well yeah, perhaps before all is said and done, it might even grab the all-time record for highest grossing animated film. That record's currently held by the Lion King remake, which grossed $1.6 billion, and I would honestly love it if this film could beat that. I mean, come on. On one hand, it's Illumination. They have the rep as being the Minions studio and are somewhat looked down on. And so I think it would be funny if they were the ones to knock Mickey Mouse off his perch. And on top of that, I think it also serves as a massive middle finger to people who look down on video game adaptations as low cinema or something like that. I mean, Mario's one of the biggest franchises ever. Ever. It's been part of the childhood of so many different people since the 80s. Let's put some respect on his name. And so yeah, seems to be well liked by everybody except the critics. But like I said earlier, who really cares what they think? The movie's already a tremendous success from its opening weekend alone, and it's going to continue raking in cash for a good couple of weeks. And on top of that, I think it's very well loved by fans. Is it going to win the Oscar? Realistically, probably no. But that doesn't really matter in the end. The proof's in the pudding, or in the box office in this case. And it's set to be a record buster. And honestly, usually I do give a full synopsis of the film in this spot of the video, but not this time I reckon. You should just watch the film, watch it. There will be spoilers ahead, don't get me wrong, but I'm not going to go through every little detail or we'd be here all day. And there really is a lot to love about the film, don't get me wrong, but I need to start with what I didn't like. I should get that out of the way first, just to ensure we can finish off the review on a high. Okay, so there were actually very few things that I didn't like as a whole. Some elements could be weaker than others, but mostly it was all fine. But Donkey Kong? Seth Rogen? It's a no from me. I felt like his performance didn't suit the character at all and just wasn't good anyway. Not a fan. And on top of that, the actual script. Not the overarching story, but some of the dialogue for the characters. It was stilted and weak. And sometimes the characters would say things that came across as forced or unnatural. Things that didn't really make sense in the context of the conversation. I mean, there's one moment where Peach and the Toads are talking about how they need to be ready for Bowser, and then one Toad turns to the camera and talks about how adorable they are. And it's like, sure, thanks for your input, mate. Not really helpful or relevant or funny, but thanks for trying. And that's just one example, but there are more across the course of the film. And it's not enough to derail anything or make it a chore to sit through, but sometimes you sit there thinking, I'm not sure what they were thinking with that line. And you wonder, was this actually written by professional writers? And then the other thing I didn't quite like, the editing. I felt like the editing, particularly the jumping back and forth of storylines, did not work well. They'd cut away from a particular story thread either too soon or too late, and so you'd get this feeling of the film entirely feeling off balance. And actually, I guess that probably comes down to the scripting as well, the screenplay, not just the editing. And so, I do think that these problems are enough to somewhat drag down the film's quality. And then also the soundtrack, I don't know what it was, but I just wasn't feeling it. I like that they had a lot of the old game themes, but I do feel like they didn't go hard enough with them. And so the soundtrack felt a little bit lost in the grand scheme of things. But like I said, those are more nitpicks than anything else, because in almost every other respect, this film is a triumph. Okay, so we'll start with the obvious. The animation, top tier, really looked great in terms of quality, but also just in terms of visual diversity. I love how they drew so much from the games when you saw places like the Darklands, or the Ice Kingdom, or the Mushroom Kingdom, or Donkey Kong Country, whatever they called it. It looked so fresh and vibrant and unique, whilst also having this massively nostalgic quality about it. And I also liked the Brooklyn segments. I mean, their version of New York. It felt very similar to every cityscape you've ever seen in any film studio's library in history. And so in that way, it gave a massive visual contrast to the more fantastical Mario stuff. And I think that just enhanced everything, especially once the two worlds collide and Mario and Luigi power up with the star to defeat Bowser. And this in turn then takes us to the story. The story overall was good. A pretty stock standard hero saves the world storyline, but Mario has always been about that sort of thing, so I don't think it would really fit the character or the world to diverge from that formula for the very first movie if you ask me. But some of the finer details, they were actually quite fun. For starters, I really liked how they handled the Mario and Luigi origin story. How they had that crazy, phony Italian accent for their ad campaign to reference the classic voices, and how their weird clothes are actually just costumes for their new plumbing business, which are intentionally eye-catching. And on top of that, they're not treated as normal. This is all laughed at by their family and the public, because it is silly. And so I did like that Mario and Luigi do start off as these pathetic plebs that can't hack it in either the real world or the Mushroom Kingdom. Especially in the Mushroom Kingdom. I mean, they're just random dudes from Brooklyn. Of course they wouldn't be able to face down Bowser or do crazy athletic tricks straight up. They actually have to train for it, earn it. While somebody like Peach, who was raised in that world, is just a genuine badass, because she was raised that way. On top of that, I like that they didn't make Peach a lame damsel in distress character either, or a reward for Mario for saving the day. She's fully fleshed out and an interesting character, and I think it works very well. On top of that, I really enjoyed Bowser. His ultimate goal to win the love of Peach, that was actually quite funny. And his random songs, also quite classic, but I liked that it didn't mean that he was reduced to this pathetic lovesick buffoon. He was still powerful, and deranged, and a true threat to the heroes. Hell, the only reason they even beat him in the first place is because they become invulnerable due to the power of the star that they steal from him. Although that does open up the whole of, why did he never use the power star? Why didn't any of the penguins use the power star to protect their home from him originally? Surely it would be better to use it up than let him steal it, right? Oh well. Anyway, Bowser comes across as a major badass, which was nice to see. They don't just straight up nerf him for the sake of the plot. He's actually a genuine threat. On top of that, I enjoyed the brotherly bond between Mario and Luigi, and just the whole light-hearted and adventurous tone the film has in general. I think the only storyline I wasn't a fan of was the Donkey Kong Country scenes. I just didn't really care about Cranky Kong, didn't care about Donkey Kong, didn't care about their father-son angst, I didn't care for it. But the rest, loved it. And then I guess we'll finish up talking about the action. It was top tier, loved it. The best part was all these action sequences felt directly lifted from the games. Mario and Luigi side-scrolling to a potential job opportunity, Mario training with Peach in a Super Mario Maker level, Mario fighting Donkey Kong in a battle that felt like it was lifted straight from Smash Brothers, the Mario Kart Rainbow Road segment, and then more Smash Bros when the Mario Brothers teamed up to take down Bowser. It feels so nostalgic, but also so engaging and exciting. Seriously, it was some of the best action I've seen in an animated film since, like, Spider-Verse pioneered that new style. And also Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, but that kind of is the Spider-Verse style. And so really, all of that combines to create a film that is very good in a lot of ways. The only thing that lets it down is the plot. It can be a bit threadbare. It's very clear the plot is only there so you can watch Mario and the gang beat stuff up, but it still works in this context. It serves as a good introduction to the world, and it's got to be my favourite video game film of all time, if I'm being honest. And I kind of hope it becomes a bit of a franchise going forward. It's got a lot of potential, and so much you could do. Donkey Kong, another Mario. I guess you could do a Mario Kart spin-off, but I think they've already kind of done that here. And it could lead into other Nintendo franchises getting movies. Legend of Zelda, perhaps. Guess we'll have to wait and see. But of course, with all that being said, that's the end of the video, and I would like to remind you these are just my opinions, and I'd like to hear yours. What did you think of the Mario film if you've seen it? Did you like it? Hate it? Do you hope there's more? If you haven't seen it, are you hyped to go and see it? I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.